The personalities that matter with Keith Vaz on Talking Points.
Lyca Radio.
Welcome back. This is Keith Vaz on Lyca Radio. Welcome to our weekend checkup slot. Are you having hearing problems? To give you an anecdote, I have always suffered from wax in my ears. And in the past, my grandmother, who started removing my wax, used to take me to the doctor and he used to syringe my ears and the wax would come gushing out into a little tray. It's all changed now because now we have electronic suction that is used to make sure our wax is removed. Neil Reithofer is the director of the Hear Clinic in Oadby, as well as the co-founder of Clear Wax, earwax removal specialists. He trains ear professionals around the world using the latest techniques and procedures. He's made an appearance on BBC Radio and CBS in America, and he now joins us this morning from Oadby. Good morning, Neil Reithofer.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Vaz. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on your show this morning.
Now, I didn't manage to get me ears done, if we put it like that, from you. I got it done elsewhere, but the Hear Clinic was established by you a few years ago. Tell me how someone chooses to be an audiologist as opposed to going into other parts of medicine.
So with an audiologist, it's a separate degree similar to being an optician or dentist. And it's not something I woke up one day thinking, I want to become an audiologist. I didn't even know what one was when I was growing up. I actually wanted to become a vet. However, I wasn't able to study veterinary science anywhere locally. And because I was sole carer for my father who was quite ill, I had to study somewhere more local. And that's when I did my research. I spoke to careers advice services, and I've always known I wanted to be involved in healthcare. And at the time, there was a great need for audiologists in the UK because in 2003, there was the introduction of digital hearing aids within the NHS. And it's something that caught my attention and something that I've never looked back now that I've studied audiology and now that I'm an audiologist.
Now, you've obviously done a lot of research into audiology, and it's obviously changed a lot over the years since my grandmother used to take me for syringing. Now, of course, people frown on the idea of putting water into your ears. And they also frown when you put little buddies in your ears to take out the wax. Do you think that, to some extent, we take our ears for granted? Other parts of our body receive a lot of attention, but the only time we bother about our ears is if there's too much wax or if we get an earache.
I think you're correct in that assumption. I think ears have always been overlooked in terms of other senses like vision and sight. However, I think now in the last decade or so, hearing has become more in the limelight, and that's for several reasons. I think hearing aids now have become more like gadgets. Previously, hearing aids, people frowned upon the thought of wearing hearing aids because they were big, ugly things that were very visible around one's ears. But however, now they're a lot more discreet. The technology within hearing aids has advanced immensely over the last decade, and now hearing aids can be completely invisible. They can connect to your smartphone, for example. And also, in the last couple of years, there's been some landmark research looking into risk factors of developing cognitive disorders like dementia and Alzheimer's, and untreated hearing loss. I think it was in the top 3, if not the biggest risk factor of developing such cognitive disorders. So I think people are becoming more aware now of hearing. A lot more people are comfortable wearing devices in the ears with all this advent of Bluetooth ear devices. I think it's becoming a lot more mainstream and acceptable now.
But in terms of the practicalities, just deal with a couple of the urban myths. Are buddies bad for you? Sticking in buddies into your ears. Should we be doing this?
Yes, earbuds, hairpins. Coming from an Asian background, I think it's quite it's almost something that an Asian initiative where everyone uses cotton buds in our community. I remember my mum using cotton buds. Cotton buds does more harm than good. It pushes wax further into the ear canal, and it can graze the delicate layer of skin that coats the ear canal, and that skin is very important to prevent infection. So yes, cotton buds, the average ear canal diameter is approximately 1 centimetre in height and about 6 millimetres in width. And if you measure the diameter of a cotton bud, it's probably 5 millimetres. So unless you've got a very large ear canal and you can look inside your ear, all you're going to be doing is pushing the wax further in and impact it against the eardrum, possibly perforating your eardrum.
So buddies are out. What about syringing as opposed to electronic suction? Because I had electronic suction very recently because my ears, as I say, fill up with wax every 6 months, which is my excuse, of course, if people ask me to do things and I can't do it for them. But anyway, syringing is out and now it's all electronic, is it?
Syringing, actually, the term syringing is no longer used. The term syringing used to describe an old metal syringe that a doctor used to physically pump into your ear. That's been replaced by what we call ear irrigation. So it's a manual controlled foot pump that you can then control the flow of water into your ear, similar to what dentists use when they rinse your mouth out. So irrigation is far, far more safer than syringing. However, in the last, I would say, 5 or 6 years, there's been a big shift away from people having their ears irrigated because it has more inherent risk. Water in the ear can lead to an infection. If you've got a perforation or a ventilation tube in your eardrum, you can't have your ears irrigated because water can enter the middle ear cavity, causing infection. It can actually force wax further into the ear canal. And it's also a blind procedure. You can't, the nurse or the audiologist, the doctor performing the procedure can't actually see what they're doing. And if you have your ears irrigated, you do have to soften the earwax for up to 10 to 14 days using ear drops like olive oil or sodium bicarbonate, which in the short term can exacerbate your symptoms. So with the technique with suction, we can actually more often than not remove the wax on the same day, and you don't have to prepare your ear. It's a lot safer. We can see what we're doing. And as I said, there's no water involved, so you're less likely to develop a secondary infection.
And finally, in terms of the way in which we can keep our ears clean regularly, people have said, don't bother to get earwax from Boots or any of these chemists. Actually, all you need is to warm up some olive oil and stick it into your ear. Is that the best way to keep the ear clean?
I would advise against that. So for the majority of people, earwax is a good thing. That's one thing I have to stress. Earwax is a natural secretion that's healthy. It has health benefits. It moisturizes the skin in the ear canal, prevents it from drying. It's also slightly acidic, so it has some antimicrobial properties to inhibit the growth and development of certain bacteria and fungi and viruses. And the acidity also repels insects, believe it or not. So it has loads of health benefit. And wax generally comes up by itself. So as the skin in the ear canal dies and sheds, it naturally migrates out of the ear like a conveyor belt. And as it does, it takes wax out with it. So for most people, my best advice is not to do anything. There's an old famous saying, never put anything smaller than your elbow in your ear. Now, if you are a chronic wax sufferer, you can use some olive oil drops, but I wouldn't use home olive oil because it's not chemically treated for safe use in the ear, and you can potentially develop an infection. And if you overwarm the olive oil, not only can you scald the eardrum or the ear canal, but you can develop what we call the caloric effect, where you can get very dizzy. So if you're going to use drops on a regular basis, you get them over the counter. I normally recommend olive oil drops and use them at room temperature. That's the key, because you won't get dizzy then.
Neil Reithather, it's a real honour to have an international multi-award-winning consultant audiologist on the programme. My ears have pricked up the sound of your voice, and I think that you're reminding us about the importance of, yes, the eyes are important, the nose is important. Obviously, we need to eat, so we have to use our mouths. But let us honour the ear and let us treat it with respect. That's what you're saying. And we're very grateful to you for joining us here today.
Thank you so much for having me on Lyca Radio. And I hope all your listeners and viewers found that engaging.